But I'll let Grace take it from here.
Thank you. So thank you all so much for coming today. We are incredibly excited to hear from our amazing panelists who have so generously given up their time today to answer our questions about applying to and attending law school. The plan for today is to conduct a brief round of intros from our panelists, followed by a round of questions for Lori Clear, Manager of Recruitment and Admissions at UVic Law, followed by a round of questions for the law students on the panel, and to enter the Q&A session where you can ask the panelists your own questions. I'll turn things over to our panelists for brief introductions. Lori, if you'd like to start us off.
Sure. Hi, thanks for having me. My name is Lori Claire. My pronouns are she, her, and hers, and I am the manager of recruitment and admissions at UVic Law. Thanks.
And Colette, if you'd like to go next.
Yeah, thanks. Hi, I'm Kilat. My pronouns are they, them. I'm a 2L second year in the Common Law and Indigenous Law program at UVic, and I am previously a vice president and president of the UPS, so it's really nice to be back. Thanks for having me.
Awesome, thank you so much. And Moise.
Hi, everybody. My name is Moniz. I'm a 2L at Queens. I did my undergrad at UVic, and I also used to be a part of the UPS back in the day. So it's fun to be back here and see all of you again.
Awesome, thank you. And then Zach.
Everyone, my name's Zach. I'm a 1L at UBC. I graduated from UVic Political Science last year, and my pronouns are he, him.
Thank you. Thank you all so much for being here. Hannah Walling, a student at UVic Law, will also be on the panel, but she's just running a couple minutes late. So let's turn to some advice for getting into law school. Lori, our first question is, what do you typically need to apply to law school, and what are law school admissions officers looking for in a standout application? And what can students do during undergrad to strengthen their applications?
Whoa, okay. Well, the basics. Let's start with the basics. What do you need to apply to law school? Minimum of 45 units or 90 credits, so 3 years towards a four-year undergraduate degree. That can look a lot of different ways, but that's the minimum requirement. LSAT, and a personal statement. Those are the three main. Now, depending on which program you're applying to, whether it's the JD or the JD/JID, there could be additional supplementary documentation that's required. Same if you're applying within the Black, the Indigenous, or the inclusive admission stream. So I always recommend to people that they really go on and take a look at the admission streams in each of the programs and take a look and determine which is the best stream that they feel they can be successful in and is the best fit for them. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to us. We're happy to talk you through it. Yeah, so those would be those questions came so fast. Those would be the main requirements. Was the other one what makes a standout applicant?
Yeah. And just kind of what can law students do to strengthen their applications?
Okay, what makes a standout application is somebody who submits an application that has been written with authenticity, with bravery, and with strategy. So you've done your research, you understand the school that you're applying to, and you prepare your application. But unlike what you will see on social media, and unlike what you see or hear a lot of, we're not so much interested in your I mean, we are interested in your achievements, but what we want to know is who are you? Who are you and why do you want law? And why do you think UVic is a really good fit? I mean, we've got people from UBC and, sorry, Moise, I can't remember where, Queens, I think it was, all amazing law school. So why do you feel that UVic is the place that's really going to be the best fit for you and a place where you can really thrive? And then in your part B, we want to see not only what you've done, your education, your work experience, extracurriculars, volunteer work. We want to know, what did you take away from that? What did you learn? What were your responsibilities in each of, for example, your work experiences? So it's really a fulsome application. It's not just about your LSAT and your GPA. It's really about the entirety of your application and how you speak to us with that passion about why you want law, who are you beyond the roles that you hold. So I identified myself at the beginning as my name's Lori and I'm the manager of recruitment and admissions at UVic Law. That tells you if you didn't see me, if you were looking at my application and all you saw was my name, what would that tell you about me? Absolutely nothing.
Mama,
It wouldn't
mama,
tell you, it wouldn't tell
mama,
you
mama.
that I identify as white, settler, that I walk through the world with a lot of power and privilege just because of the color of my skin. And I hold a lot of accountability as a result of that. It wouldn't tell you that I do the work I do at UVic Law because I'm trying to kick those doors open and make law accessible for all people who may have seen themselves at law but never actually saw it as a realization. Maybe they thought that they wanted to be a lawyer, but for whatever reason didn't think that they could be. We are really trying to open those doors for people to acknowledge and recognize individual strengths, your lived experiences, your knowledge, and what you're bringing to UVic Law as a community and the environment we're trying to build, but also to the legal field on the other side. That's what makes a standout application. And the third question?
Yeah, the third question was just what do you think are the best things students can do during undergrad to strengthen their applications?
Follow your passion. So don't do what anybody else tells you to do. I mean, if you have a passion for psychology or neuroscience or theater or visual arts or whatever it is, poli-sci, follow your passion. We look at every applicant with any discipline from any recognized post-secondary educational institute. What we want you to do is follow your passion. And I want you to, while you're doing that throughout your undergrad journey, I want you to think about who are you? And why do you want law? And why UVic Law? And what have you learned on this journey to where you are right now, based on your own personal lived experiences and how you walk through the world, that you can bring to UVic Law and to the legal field on the other side that's really going to add value? Because our goal is not only to change, not only to have an incredibly vibrant law class, it's also to change the face of the Canadian judiciary, but also the lived experiences of all the people who hold those amazing positions. So think about that as you continue through that journey of your undergraduate studies.
That's amazing. Thank you. Kind of leading on to that, we have another question that's at UVic, what is the difference between the JID and the JD programs, and what does the JID add? And Colette, I know you're also in the JID, so feel free to jump in if you have anything to add.
I was going to say, do you want to take that one first?
You should do the basic overview. I'll add
Okay.
on.
All right. Okay, so the JD-JID. The JD-JID is our 4-year double degree program. It is where you're going to learn Canadian common law side by side with Indigenous legal orders. It is a 4-year program, and I've been asked to emphasize that for people so that they can plan ahead. It's 4 years, and in your 3rd and 4th year, you are going to have an opportunity to go out and work with an Indigenous community on a legal order of their choice. We take in between 25 and 27 students into that program, so it's cohort based. I think I'm admitting the 9th cohort, September 2026. It is an amazing and incredible and a groundbreaking program. I also say to people, it's probably one of the most challenging experiences you're going to have in the entirety of your life. We admit a minimum of 50%. We try to admit a minimum of 50% Indigenous, and then the remaining seats are open to all. You're taught, and as a result of that, you're going to be in a class, a very small class of people who are from all over Canada internationally, who have very different lived experiences, who look different, who have different ideologies, different beliefs than you do. And you're talking about a Canadian legal system that in many ways is great, but in many ways, as we all know, continues to harm and cause oppression. You're talking about Indigenous legal orders, many of which are just beginning to be, find resurgence again and be redeveloped. People think of law school and they think about the academic rigor. I often really like to focus more on the spiritual and the mental aspects of this. What makes a standout applicant, circling back to a little bit here, is if you, in that who are you piece, if you can clearly articulate to a group of the admissions committee, who are you? Where do your parents come from? Where's your family from? Where do your grandparents come from? Who are you outside of the roles that you hold on your day-to-day life? What are your values? What's important to you? That shows me a very self-aware, a very strong individual. So where I'm leading to with this, if you're talking about a difficult situation, a difficult legal situation, for example, in a class of 26 of very different people, and somebody says something that lands really hard for you, you're most likely going to be able to lead with curiosity, with kindness, and respect by maybe saying to that person, "Hey, I'm wondering if you can just repeat what you just said." And if they do, say, can we go for coffee? Because that landed really hard for me, and I don't know whether that was your intent. I'd really like to talk to you about it. Right? That's what we're trying to teach, is we're trying to teach across the GD, JID, as well as the JD. We're trying to teach students how to disagree agreeably with kindness, with respect, and with curiosity. The JD is our 3-year program where you are going to learn Canadian common law. Here is where you have the opportunity. Oh, actually, you have the opportunity in the JD/JID as well, but we have the only law co-op program in Canada. You can start in year 1 and go through right till year 3. They have recently completed a opportunity, and I don't know a lot about it, but I believe it's for 1 term in the JD/JID where you can do a work experience similar, I think it is, to a co-op, but I can get you more information on that if you're interested. The JD program, 3 years, Canadian common law, lots of experiential learning opportunities. The biggest difference, I think, between the two, well, a couple of differences. The JD/JID is cohort based, so like I said, 25 to 27. The JD program, I'm admitting between 118 and 120. And I think in the JD/JID program, you're graduating with 2 degrees. In the JD, you're graduating with 1. And I think with the JD/JID, you're coming out with a toolbox with additional tools that you wouldn't necessarily have with just the JD. And finally, with the JD/JID, you just have that opportunity to really function at that intersection of Canadian common law and Indigenous legal orders. That
Thank
would be
you.
my intro.
That's really insightful. And Colette, if you have anything to add about your experience?
Yeah, I think the one part I would add is it's not so much a comparative, like you're not comparing Canadian common law and Indigenous laws and legal orders. It's more so not that Indigenous. Earlier, I just wanted to clarify that like it's not that Indigenous legal orders are like burgeoning in and like coming to life now. It's that they've always been set, and now it's just trying to see if and where and how they might be cognizable to Canadian courts and the ways that they absolutely are not, and like trying to meet the live modern demands that Indigenous nations and communities have to put forward their rights in ways that are cognizable to Canadian common law courts, but also that honor their original Indigenous legal traditions. So it's very very difficult. And when Lori said it was the hardest thing, like it's actually truly the hardest thing, and we'll get into that later. But oh, 1L super sucked, like super awful, bad times. And everyone can say that, but like it's more just like the inner reckoning. We'll get into it later when it's our part, but oh, it super sucked.
Awesome, thank you. We had a question in the chat that's pretty similar to a question that I already had planned to ask, so I'll just jump to that one. For Lori again, what role does work experience play in the application process, and is work experience related to law especially valuable? And then, sorry for these really big questions, but is there a disadvantage going to law school straight out of undergrad? So just kind of all about work experience and how that relates.
Okay, the work experience, I mean, it's valuable in this if you can speak to what did you learn from it? What did you take away? So for example, it's not expected. For example, if you are a single mom, you're working two jobs, you're trying to do full-time studies, I'm not going to anticipate that we're going to see a whole heck of a lot of work experience in there, right? So, and it does working at a law firm have advantages? Not as far as admissions is concerned. It does have advantages in that you get a sense, you get a feel for it, you get a vibe for how it works, etc. But as far as an admissions piece, no, it doesn't. It doesn't have any advantage at all. What is going to make your work experience stand out is when you tell us what did you learn from it. So, for example, if I indicated that I was a manager at Starbucks for 2 years from 2020 to 2022, I would also put in there what was I responsible for. So I was a manager of six staff. I worked the night shift. I would give them some ideas of what I was doing. I would list all of my work experience and then I would summarize it. And here's where your opportunity is to be strategic. So if I was really interested in access to justice, diversity, equity, inclusion, I might say, as the manager working the night shift, I really got a frontline seat to see the inequities between those with privilege and those without privilege, which could beautifully tie in with what I'm telling you in part A about my why law. So it's more about what did you learn? What did you take away? And what are you bringing forward? So did you learn to listen rather than respond? Did you learn empathy? Did you learn understanding? Did you learn to recognize the privilege that you stand in yourself by even just having a job? Compared to others. What did you learn that is going to be applicable to law school and to the legal field on the other side? And sorry, what was the third one?
Oh yeah, so you've highlighted like really things you can get from work experience that can be really valuable. So would you say there's a disadvantage to going to law school straight out of undergrad or
No,
no?
I mean, everybody's path is different. I mean, some people go straight out. Some people take a year or two or three off. Very few people's path is direct. That doesn't mean there's anything wrong with it if it is. Again, it's just tell us about your experience, really talk to us who you are, why law. I mean, we admit people who have just completing their third year. They don't even complete an undergraduate degree and come in. So it's really your choice. Law school will always be there. It's about when are you ready to take on the rigor of law school.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And then I guess we can move on to another question, which is, are there any common mistakes you see on applications and how can we avoid them?
Stay off Reddit. Stay off Reddit, for God's sakes. Yes, that's the biggest one right there. The other thing is people fill their part A of their personal statement I'm going to pick on you guys. I was the president of the UPS late in the day program at UVic Poli Sci. I worked at this law firm. I got this scholarship. I did all of these amazing. That can all go down into Part B. You've lost us. Okay, that all goes down into Part B. We are going to read it. Part A is 750 words. It is what I say a love letter about you. Who are you? Why do you want law? Why UVic Law? And what are you bringing based on your lived experience to the law school and to the legal profession on the other side? Then what your goal here is to have the committee members read Part A and go, this is somebody I want in my law class. I want more. Let's go to Part B and see what they tell us more. Tell us, this is where you're going to tell us using a CV format. I don't want a CV, but you can structure it for easy reading. Tell us about your work experience, your education. Tell us about your work experience. Tell us about your extracurriculars. Tell us about volunteer work. Tell us about if you've published, if you have written a paper or you've co-published with somebody. give us some fun facts. So I had read one the other day that, I mean, he will ever be known as Chicken Wing Man, who talked about and tied it in with his Y Law, doing under his fun facts about raising money by doing for the group of people he was advocating for by doing a chicken wing eating contest. And he won it by doing some research in that you dip the chicken wings in water before you eat them. So he won, anyways, fun fact, but tied it in with his Y Law. So very strategic.
Amazing, thank you. Um, so we have another question, which would be kind of related to how long the application process takes and how far in advance you need to start preparing. So personal statements, reference letters, the LSAT, just kind of everything. If people are, say, in their like second or third year, what can they kind of anticipate looking forward in terms of the time?
Well, the students on the panel can probably address when to prepare for the LSAT better than I can, but I would say so. We take the last LSAT that we will take is January of the year that you're applying to enter. Do not leave January as your first LSAT writing. My recommendation is you write one in August and then another one in the fall and schedule your January as a backup if necessary. So that would be one thing. Your personal statements start now. Start thinking about it. You don't have to write it, but start thinking about those questions. Who am I? Why law? Put a sticky note on your computer, put a sticky note on your cupboard, on your fridge, on your bathroom mirror. And so it's always in the back of your mind and you're thinking about it and write it down. References, you can start prepping that right now. So if you're in your second or your third year, start building those relationships with your profs. First day of class, go and introduce yourself. Hi, my name is, I'm so excited to be here in your class. Go access office hours. Like you want to build those relationships. A thing to know about references is if you are going to ask somebody to be a reference, please don't email them and ask, say, I'm applying to UVic Law, will you be my academic reference? That will kill your application. I can tell a reference when somebody has done that. What I need you to do is email them. Can I take 15 or two? I'm applying to UVic Law. Send them the link. I'm applying in the inclusive, the Indigenous, the Black. I'm applying to the JDGID program. Send them the link. Can I take 15, 20 minutes of your time? Can I bring you a coffee? Can we go for a walk? Whatever your relationship is with this individual, and go and meet with them. And when you go, take 3 or 4 talking points because so something like, do you remember when I wrote that paper and you said it was really thinking outside the box and it really blew your mind? Do you remember when we did a group presentation and the people in my group said that I took on a real leadership role? Do you remember? Give them some ideas of some examples of what they can write about. What I want, if you're asked, if a reference is going to put their name, especially a faculty member is going to put their name on a reference on your behalf, I want them to tell me why they're doing that. So give me examples of why they feel you're going to be successful in law school. And make sure that your references are what we call arm's length. So they're not personal friends, they're not family members. They have to be somebody who can give us an objective opinion of your potential to be successful. Your references, where they are required, they will make or break your application. So one poor reference will kill an otherwise superb application. So be really careful. And I usually suggest do it face to face or online because you will get a gut feeling whether this person's going to write you the type of reference that you want. If they're not, thanks so much. Move on and go find somebody who will. And the last thing, I'm going to circle back to the question, one thing that about what are the mistakes? People not reading the instructions. So for example, for UVic Law, your personal statement is part A and part B. Part A is 750 words. I can't tell you, we've got 2 weeks until the deadline and a gazillion people have not included their part B. Your application will be considered incomplete. with no Part B. So make sure that you're reading those instructions and that when you do apply, you are submitting the everything that's required for the admission stream within or program that you're applying for. I just was on another call with True and UBC earlier today. Thompson Rivers got a personal statement with a Part A and Part B. They don't require a Part A and Part B. So that applicant is being automatically refused because they did not read the instructions. So we all talk to each other, all of the universities across. So I know what Osgood needs. I know what, McGill needs. I know what True needs. I know what UBC needs. They also know what we need in our applications. We also recognize you're going to be applying to multiple law schools across Canada, most likely. Um, Make sure that you know what each law school needs and create your application specific to that law school. So that is going to take you time. We all have different deadlines. Ontario's deadline is November 1st. Mine and UBC's is December 1st. I think True's was earlier November, but they have a late deadline, February 10th, I think. So you need create an Excel spreadsheet or whatever you do and put application, the law schools you're going to apply to, what's required for the application that or the stream or program that you're applying to, the dates, like have it on a spreadsheet, and then give yourself time to put enough energy and effort into each of those applications so that they are specific to the law schools you're applying to. It will make a difference.
Perfect, thank you. Just to go back to the reference letters. So, how many reference letters does UVic require, and what's the kind of mix of, are they all professors, or can they be people like managers from work or volunteer supervisors, or what's kind of the mix of what you want?
Depends on the admission stream you apply within. So, for example, in the inclusive, so in the JD General, no references. In the inclusive, we require an academic and then either an employment or a character reference. So it could be your manager, could you be your volunteer where you're volunteering, your manager there, somebody in a supervisory position to you. The Indigenous, it would be one academic and then one that can speak to your community and get your connection to community. The Black, there are no references for the Black stream. For the JDJID, it would be one academic and again one that speaks to your commitment and your suitability for the JDJID program. So each stream is slightly different. And each program, the references are slightly different.
Perfect. Thank you so much. All of that was incredibly insightful. We're now going to switch gears and interview the law students on the panel. So our first question is, why did you choose the law school you did? And whoever wants to start us off can just go ahead. And you can all jump in.
I can start. I was a bit late joining, but I'm Hannah. I don't know if you guys did introductions already. Probably.
Oh, we did.
I just had a moot Chambers application that I was doing for my Civ Pro class. Anyways, I'm a 3L at UVic. And a big part of why I chose UVic was sort of maybe not the best reason, but I wanted to live in Victoria. I did my undergrad here. I'd been living here. I didn't want to move away. So I actually only applied to UVic and nowhere else. I don't recommend doing that if you really want to get in because I got waitlisted when I first applied, and I had no other options. So I had to reapply the next cycle, and I did get in the second time. And I'm glad I did, and I'm glad I'm at UVic. But there's other options because I could have, if I applied somewhere else and gone somewhere else, I could have then transferred my second year back here. So yeah, kind of recommend maybe a wider net. But yeah, that was sort of my main reason for picking UVic was location.
Perfect. Thank you. If anyone else wants to jump in.
Yeah, I can go next. So for me, I wanted to practice in Ontario, and I knew this going into the process. And it's definitely not a requirement, but it really helps if you go to law school in the province that you want to practice within, because it helps you with making connections, meeting with local lawyers, and kind of getting a bit of a feel for whatever city it may be. And for me, Queens specifically, I was very interested in it because it had that small town, very like tightly knit community. And as I'm sure you'll hear from the other panelists throughout this talk, is that 1L is it's an experience for sure. And so it really helps to be with a great group of people. And for me, that means having all of my friends about like a 10-minute walk away. So it was really easy to, support each other throughout 1L. Queens also has amazing, amazing clinics, which was really important to me through the application process. And so right now, as a 2L, I'm a caseworker at the Queens Business Law Clinic. It's such a fun experience to actually get this hands-on opportunity to work on files, to meet with real people and do real legal work. And so all of that kind of showed me that Queens would be the right fit for me.
Awesome, thank you. If anyone else wants to.
I can go next. Before I applied to law school, I had spoken to some lawyers from Vancouver, and they mentioned what Moise was saying, that it's really important to have a connection to the place you want to work, and you can do that by choosing a school that's close to where you want to live and where you want to work. And I've always known that I want to stay in BC. I'm from Whistler. I love BC, and I ideally wanted to work in Vancouver, so that's why UBC was an easy choice for me.
Perfect, thank you. And Colette?
Yeah. I actually did what Hannah did. I only applied to the JD program and no other program because it was either going to be this or I would just reapply every year. Yeah, so I'm glad that I got in, but I think that it was there's just no other way for me. It depends on what your goals are. For me, my goal was like, how do I reckon with what I see as like the coloniality of law and how it can be understood and then functionalized to advance Indigenous governance and like protect families from the state and protect movements, protecting people and civil rights. And so that was kind of more my goal because it is so interdisciplinary and multifaceted. And yeah, that's why I chose it.
Amazing, thank you. Our next question is, what were your biggest challenges starting law school? If you guys want to go in the same order again, that might make things easier.
Okay, I shouldn't have gone first. Um, the challenges, or sorry, could you say that again?
Yeah, what were your biggest challenges starting law school?
Biggest challenges starting law school. I was really afraid because of the kind of lore around 1L and like law school in general. Everyone says it's really, really hard. And I was afraid about my just capacity to be able to do it even. And I thought I was smart and, I got in. So that was a good indication, but I was just afraid of that. And I think the challenges were it wasn't necessarily in the work of it because you're kind of in your cohort, everyone else around you, you're making friends, everyone wants to make friends, you have people helping you, at least at UVic, like everyone's very supportive. And you can get through it because if they pick you to go get in, you're capable of doing it. But I think fighting that sort of imposter syndrome or feeling that I don't know anything about the law, I don't know, you know, even applying for jobs for my 1L summer of just like being bold enough to say like no, like I can do this and I can figure it out and sort of getting over that. And once I kind of got through my first year and I worked in the summer, I've gotten past it a bit and I was like able to put my hand up in class. I don't think I did it all in my first year. So that was probably my biggest struggle.
Yeah, I'm gonna echo Hannah quite a bit here. It really feels like in 1L that there's a bit of a imposter syndrome where everyone you meet is so incredibly smart. And at least for me, I started to doubt whether like I could do this, whether I could keep up. And at Queen's, our first real sort of measure of how you're doing is in our December exams. So you've got about 3 months of no idea how you're faring, no idea if you're understanding any of the content. And so it can start to dawn on you a little bit and be a bit draining. Ultimately, it really is just important to keep a positive mindset and, kind of realize that everyone's feeling this way and that you'll be okay. And, as Hannah mentioned, that you were chosen for a reason. You clearly have the ability to succeed. I think another thing worth mentioning is managing all the readings, because let me tell you guys now, there is so many, and it takes a bit of a skill to learn how to navigate them, what you can skim, what you have to read word for word, and that takes a little bit of time. And it's really easy to just sink so many hours into your readings at first until you eventually get into that bit of flow of how to manage it.
Um, yeah, they kind of said it all. Currently, I have no idea what I'm doing. December exams are in 2 weeks. I'm in 1L, but it is true. You arrive at law school and you're surrounded by people who all really want to be there and they're all very smart. And you're going to instantly start comparing yourself to them, what they're doing, how they're doing every single reading, seemingly like hours and days before you are. And everybody seems so prepared and on top of it. And it's hard to not compare yourself to everybody. And I guess the challenge is finding what works for you, finding your routine, finding what makes you feel like you're doing enough and not just like comparing yourself to everybody else.
Yes, to all of that. I think another hard part of it was for me, it's like learning a brand new language. And the biggest issue I had in 1L was that the profs like don't tell you their expectations or like you're going to learn all this like case law, blah, blah, but how to actually apply it on an exam is very unclear. It's so frustrating. And then another challenge for me was that I don't use AI. And I think that UVic Poli Sci was really good at prepping you on like how to like work through critical things like on your own and how to write that out in like really like clear thoughts. But AI is such an issue at every law school and everywhere. So how to do that without how to like do your studies and learn how to read things and like what Moise was saying about like doing your readings properly, like at some point you just stop doing your readings. Maybe it's just me, but you just have to learn how to like balance your time and like what actually is important because doing your readings while you're doing like a bunch of different assignments is impossible. And so it's literally just a test of like how well you handle stress and how to make things like work smarter, not harder. And then I also wanted to talk about like the JID specifically. I think there was so many social challenges that I had, and even if you can just tell from like the way that I'm speaking in this talk, like I have like very strong opinions and belief systems. And so like rocking up against that, it's not that anyone's butting heads or anything. And I actually freaking love my cohort and we're all like great friends, but it's more just like you're reckoning with all of the identity politics and not just within the JAD program, but like with your whole entire cohort of 1L or 2L, whoever, like whatever level you're in. There's so many people, you're so afraid to make mistakes. And I think that like every problem that you can think of in like a leftist space, not that UVic is super leftist to be honest, but like you're just afraid of like getting canceled, saying the wrong thing in class. Like everyone is very, very like not necessarily type A, but like strong in their beliefs and their systems. Sometimes type A, like for sure. But yeah, so I think like one thing I would say is like go try to do some like inner work during your undergrad or like work separately. Like don't go to law school right away and just like develop like who you are and like gain your sense of confidence in who you are. And but also just be open to like to having your mind changed. It's such a humbling experience, especially in the JAD program. So yeah, be humble, be kind.
Awesome, thank you. I guess just kind of jumping off of what you guys have all addressed, like what is the jump from undergrad to law school like in terms of difficulty and time commitment? And is law school really as like all-consuming and horrific as everyone says?
I feel like I don't want to yes, it is very difficult. Like we all obviously that's you can kind of tell from the way we talk about it, but I also feel like if that's where you want to be, like you're capable of doing it. And if that's where you want to be, like you're okay with spending a lot of time working on it and you're okay because it's going to take you to where you want to go. Um, in terms of the jump from undergrad, uh, a big thing I found was just taking note, like keeping up and taking notes. I used to do everything handwritten because I thought, oh, it's like easier for me to kind of like take things in and learn things by writing things down. And I just couldn't do that in law school. I type everything because that's how I operated in law school. But it's also like not, there's lots of people who don't do that. There's people who just sit and take notes by hand in class and they don't write everything down verbatim. So it really comes down to figuring out your best strategy. I know like people will say that to you throughout law school too, of like find your own way. And but it's true, you know, finding your own strategy, and it just takes some time to figure it out. Even now in 3L, I'm still figuring out my best strategy and how to balance everything. Um, but yeah, I think just don't be discouraged by that, and don't let just because it's difficult doesn't mean that it's not really worth doing. If it's something you want to do, like the hardness shouldn't make it less appealing, I guess.
Yeah, again, echoing Hannah's point, 1L, it definitely is difficult, but from my experience, I feel like it kind of becomes easier with time. So the first month or two, you're going to have no idea what these words mean. You're not going to know how to read or brief a case. But then, kind of as you continue throughout 1L, everything becomes a little bit easier. And so at that point, the difficulty more so becomes managing your time and managing how much work you have. So I'd say, again, the biggest adjustment compared to undergrad is just how many readings you have. And then here at Queen's, our assessment structure is very different to what undergrad was like for me. So I had a couple of classes in 1L where our final exam was worth 90% of our grade. And these were year-long courses, right? And so it's very important to stay on top of your readings, make sure you actually understand it, and kind of believe in yourself when you go into that exam because they are worth so much. But I will say again, like law school is definitely difficult, but if it's something you're genuinely passionate about and you find some kind of joy in it, it really isn't that bad. And so it's important to do a bit of like soul searching and make sure this is the right path for you. And if you ultimately feel that it is, then yeah, it's still going to be a lot of work. Like, don't get me wrong, but you can find a lot of joy in the process and it can be a lot of fun.
I've got a couple things to add. One thing I'll say is that unlike undergrad, at least at UBC, we have a cohort like a lot of the other law schools do, and it's a pretty incredible support system. So even though it is very challenging, you're surrounded by all these smart people who actually do still want to help each other, and you can kind of rely on them, and you're kind of all going through the same thing. So having that support system is really nice. The other thing, kind of just building off of what Moise said, is the lack of touch points to see how you're doing without feedback is like brutal. Like I'm in November and exams are coming up like very shortly, and there's been no feedback at all. I haven't gotten a single piece of feedback, and that can be very difficult compared to undergrad where you have like weekly quizzes or discussions or things like that. So you're kind of going in blind, and that's a big change.
Yeah, I think just to add, outlining is a term I didn't know before law school. It's just like how you study and like making like formal outlines like on a Word doc or something, just so that you can bring that into your exam if you're allowed to. Learn how to do that well. It's once you get to law school, like go to law school first, get admitted, and then like ask others how they outline and see what the outlining policy is. I know that at UVic we have like a shared outline. Even if you don't get into UVic, you can like look at all of the outlines on the Law Student Society website. Um, but so we're like quite open and liberal with those, but other law schools are like sharing outlines is cheating. So like find at the very least, find friends who you can share your outlines with and like don't gatekeep knowledge. Like everyone's struggling. And like Zach said, like even at such a competitive place like UBC, at least in theory, I think it's competitive, but like people still want to help each other and support each other. So find your people. And then the other thing is get over having good grades in your undergrad. I was a straight A student in undergrad, and it literally doesn't matter in law school. Like no one cares. And getting 70% is such a good grade. Like it's great. C's get degrees, and like that's so true for law school.
Awesome. Thank you guys. That was super interesting. I guess we have another question, which is what can you do in terms of habits or preparation in your undergrad to set yourself up for success in law school?
Um, it's sort of tough because like law school is very, as we've kind of touched on, it's very different than undergrad, and especially in terms of how you're tested. Um, and at least in first year, because you're not at UVic anyways, you're not having assignments like you're having a midterm and a final, and it's a year long sort of thing. Um, but I guess like building habits of going to class. I know there's lots of people that I know that don't go to class, and some people it works for them, I guess. They don't go to class and they do the readings and they can figure it out, and maybe that's their own strategy. But I think like going to class and taking notes, working on your strategy is for taking notes, having good study habits, having good work life, school life balance and work. Um, sort of yeah, because I think also going to law school, if you're not kind of prepared, or you even if you're prepared for it, but you're sort of just going to commit all of your life now to school, you're going to burn out, and that's not going to work either. So sort of being, yeah, I don't know, ready to keep all aspects of your life going, even when the school part is so massive. Um, yeah.
That point, it's so important to not let the process take over your whole life because, when you're preparing for the LSATs, at least speaking from my own experience, I was constantly thinking about it, always thinking about my personal statement, about how to do better on the LSAT. And, you can't really go into this career with that mindset because it always becomes something new. So, once you actually arrive in law school, the next kind of thing you'll constantly be thinking about is how to do well in my classes, finding a job. And then once you actually start practicing as a lawyer, it never really ends. And so it's really important to kind of set those boundaries for yourself early on and to make sure you still find time for, frankly, being a person, maintaining your hobbies and still having a sense of like happiness and not letting law take over your entire life. I would also say it's super useful to figure out if this is something you want to do early on because, among my friends who did really well in law school, all of them knew that this is what they wanted to do. They loved the law. They had a passion for it. And, it really helps you make the readings more interesting and to do well in your classes. And so I'd say it'd be such a valuable experience if you have the opportunity to maybe volunteer with a law firm for a few weeks or something to that effect to kind of see what the practice of law actually looks like and whether it's the right fit for you. And then also echoing Hannah's points, do your readings. I definitely didn't in undergrad. And so it was a bit of a shock here in law school having to, read like 60 pages per class. So build those habits early on.
Yeah, I'll definitely echo what Moy said. Do your readings, just like even just to practice or just read anything. That's something somebody told me before I even got to law school is just like practice reading because like you're gonna need to build the habits. Like you can't fully get away with not doing the readings in law school, but yeah, reading and another thing like Moise was saying, I talked to lawyers before I applied to law school, and it was helpful to kind of get a general idea and just tips and tricks. Like I would have never known that, going to UBC is something that could help me get a job in Vancouver. I may have blindly applied out east and had a harder time coming back home. So just kind of go out there, network with people, try to get a better idea of where you want to go, what you want to do, and learn about the law schools. And then, yeah, just as a basic fact, just learn to read and learn to read good.
If you're in poli sci, you're used to like doing a bunch of readings, but it's like a brand new beast to how many pages. I'm trying not to swear. How many pages that they make you read in law school. Um, I don't know if I have anything else to add besides maybe like try working before you go to law school. I know that fine we might talk about finances anyways, but I saved up as much as I could all throughout the summer. I had like 3 or 4 jobs the summer before law school, just because I knew that I wouldn't be able to work as much, but it wasn't possible for me not to work during law school. So yeah, just try to save up. But there are opportunities to work while you're in law school as well. And also, you don't have to want to be a lawyer to go to law school. I didn't really think about going to law school until like uh like right when I applied, pretty much. And there's lots of things that you can do with a legal education besides being a lawyer. So don't cut yourself out just because of that if you don't see yourself in a courtroom.
Amazing, thank you. Just to touch off a point you just made, I was wondering if any of you have any tips in terms of applying for scholarships or funding opportunities, or if you are working before or during law school, how are you managing that? Just stuff like that, like finances. If you have any tips.
Um, I would say, well, applying for the general stuff of like student loans, they do give you a good amount of money for going to law school for student loans, like the general, but still, it's not enough. But in terms of like at UVic, I guess I can only really speak to UVic. There's like a law specific bursary that you can apply for and a general bursary, and you get all that information. You get a million emails, but you'll get all that information kind of sent to you when you need to apply. They're really good about kind of putting forward any scholarship opportunities. And then outside of that, uh, there's other opportunities where you can write specific papers. Like I did that last year. My like major research paper I submitted for something and I got to go to this cool conference thing and like I got a bursary for it. So there's always like those kind of opportunities. And there's also at UVic, there's different opportunities to work either as like a research assistant for profs, which is a really great gig that you can do during school and kind of build your research skills as you are at school. Kind of it takes you got to kind of manage your responsibilities, obviously, but there's some good opportunities there as well. I'm sure at other law schools there's similar stuff as well.
Yeah, so at Queen's, similar to UVic, we have a lot of just general scholarships through the university. We have a general bursary, and then we have a lot of law specific funding, which, to be completely honest, is usually associated with academic performance. So if you, for example, win the course prize and you get the highest grade in a section, you usually get a pretty decent scholarship from that. There are a lot of opportunities, like Hannah mentioned, to work as a research assistant for a professor, which is such a cool experience. Definitely apply once you get to law school. In terms of working throughout the program, I don't know anybody who did it in 1L. And to be completely honest, it can be a bit tough to navigate your time just with how demanding 1L can be. But in upper years, at least, with how I structured my schedule and at Queen's, I have quite a bit of free time this year and then next year as well. I could definitely manage a part-time job in addition to my studies. So, if that is something that you feel would help out, then it's definitely possible, especially in upper years.
Um, At UBC, I know that once you are admitted, you automatically apply for a set of scholarships from the bursary here. And you find out in December, so you don't find out going into your 1L year. You find out after your first semester. So that's something to keep in mind in case you're relying on a scholarship from that set of scholarships. Another thing, I kind of like dug around in like my local community where I'm from and clubs and programs that I had been part of through my undergrad. Sometimes there's some good hidden opportunities there. And then for working, I'm not working right now. I'm trying to manage my time, barely holding on.
Very relatable. I was just going to add on for the UVic thing. I don't know if it's different for Ontario or any other province, but to get the bursaries and grants from UVic and from the law school specific bursaries, you have to be on student loans to qualify for any other extra bursaries. So apply for student loans. Okay, yeah, Moe said the same in Queens. So definitely apply for your provincial student loans that apply to you. I tried to save up for one whole year's worth of tuition so that anything else that I made during the year would just be my like other life bills. But I worked full time during law school and I truly don't recommend that. But sometimes you don't have the opportunity not to. So do what you got to do. There's lots of identity-based scholarships, especially available through UVic, that you either like just click a button to say that you apply for them and you identify as this identity, or you automatically get put into them when you apply and when you get admitted. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Next, I was hoping you could walk us through your experiences studying for the LSAT and writing personal statements and tell us what's super important to know about the process.
Oh man, the LSAT. Thinking back on that. My experience studying for the LSAT was not, I didn't give myself enough time. I took it the first time. I took 5 years to do my degree. in my undergrad. So I took it for the first time, I believe, in August of like beginning my fifth year of my undergrad degree. And so in theory, I was going to study over the summer, but I didn't really study that much and I was panicking. And then I took it and it was fine. And I got my score and it was good. And I applied. And then uh, in terms of personal statement, because I got waitlisted that first year. And so when I was reapplying, I had to kind of rethink my personal statement. I had to rethink the LSAT, whether I was going to retake it. And I actually went and spoke, I think I went and spoke to Lori actually, about, because you can go in and get feedback on if you get waitlisted about what you could do to strengthen your application. So I got feedback on that. And I did retake the LSAT. And I studied a lot more for it and I got the exact same score. So didn't make any difference, but my personal statement, I completely changed. I just made it a lot more personal, I guess, but in the sense of I when I didn't get in, I realized really more why I wanted to go to law school and why, like, I just had more of a deep understanding of why I wanted to do it. And I think that translated to my personal statement. My first one was a lot more surface level. So that would be my advice of like really trying to consider why it is you want to go and connecting it to your life and anything that makes you unique. Um, yeah, that would kind of be my best advice.
Yeah, so I wrote my LSAT in the summer right after third year, right before I was about to start my fourth year of undergrad. I wrote it while working full time, which I definitely would not recommend. It is a very demanding test. And so if you're going to do it in addition to school, in addition to work, give yourself, I mean, ideally, I'd like to say like 6 months because the LSAT, it definitely is a difficult exam, but it's very learnable. And so when I first started out, I, didn't get the highest scores on my practice tests. But, the more time you spend with the test, the more time you do prep courses or you read prep books, it really helps you improve your score and get a bit more comfortable with that style of thinking. I do also really want to stress that just because you got a low score and you still got into law school, that does not correlate to your law school performance at all. Um, I mean, maybe like to some degree, I don't want to fully say it's a pointless test, but to be completely honest, I wouldn't put that much stock in determining how you're going to do. In terms of the actual personal statement, I spoke with Lori, I want to say about 4 years now. And I went to her and I said, hey, I'm considering law school. And she asked me, why law? And, I gave her a bit of a simple answer, which was, not that reflective, not that in depth. And she kind of called me out on it. And it made me realize that, why law? And I started to think about it. And, I spent probably a good year trying to gather my thoughts, think about why this is the right path for me. And so it's really important to kind of put that thought into it and think about like, is this what I want to do for the rest of my life? And why? And start early with that process. Ask yourself difficult questions. Speak with others, speak with law students, and really learn a bit about the lifestyle, the culture, the career, and assess whether it fits your own values and whether it's something you want to do. So, on both counts, definitely start early, leave yourself a lot of time, and it'll all work out.
Yeah, a lot of good things have been said, but one thing I'll add is I went into the LSAT process also working full time, thinking I was going to be able to do it once and then forget about it. And I did it for the first time and I did not get the score I wanted. And I proceeded to spend the next, I think it was 2 months before my next one, and I was studying really, really hard, and I only got a 2 point increase. So the LSAT will wear you down. I ended up not getting the score I wanted, and but I wasn't prepared to do another one and study more. So I just applied with the score I had, and I got into the school I wanted to get into. As for the personal statement, one thing I'll add to what's been said is it doesn't have to be why law as in why lawyer. It can be why law as in why do you want the degree and what are you going to do with it? I kind of took that approach because I'm, to be honest, I'm not 100% sure that I will practice law for my entire career. But I was able to articulate how law was going to help me achieve my goals, maybe that be in business or something else. So being able to explain how law is a necessary step in getting towards your goal is something that you might want to think about for your personal statement.
I'm like the worst person to ask about LSAT because I wrote it once and I studied for like a month. I had a tutor, luckily. That really helped actually. I got a tutor for it. Um, and I don't even know my score because I didn't look because I didn't care. And uh, so if you can get away with just studying with like, for me, getting a tutor was the main thing that I did to study. I didn't get any extra stuff. The only thing that I did was download past tests, and I only studied from past tests. I didn't do like anything extra because sometimes my tutor told me that like there's some other like study guides or whatever that aren't actually written by the LSAT people. And so it's not actually accurate to what it would look like or like the same processes. And also, you guys, it's logic games are now gone from it. So it's just reading comprehension and the other one that I hate, analytical something evil. So it totally looks different now. And so make sure that whatever sources that you get are actually relevant to the new test now. For personal statement, yeah, as Lori said, there's a different one for the JID, and you have to talk about your connection to an Indigenous community. Um, and that doesn't mean that you have to be Indigenous either. It's just that, yeah, your meaningful work with a community that's not like extractive or problematic or surface level. And if anyone wants to talk about that, I'm just wary of time, then you can feel free to contact me in the chat, and then I can send you my info. But also get other people to look at your statement. It's so cringe. Oh, it's so cringe and awful to write. But if I had like 7 different pairs of eyes on it, and it really helped.
I just wanted to add one thing because I think I might be the only person who did the new version of the LSAT. Um, just make sure you don't neglect reading comp, although um it will most likely be, oh, I forget exactly how it did it, but it will end up being less of a, like a smaller percentage of your LSAT than the logical reasoning sections will be. I think you get one reading comp and two logical reasonings that count, but you can make or break your score just on that reading comp section. It's way easier to accrue easy points on reading comp than it is to accrue that one extra super difficult question on logical reasoning. So don't neglect reading comp would be my tip for the new test.
Awesome. Thank you guys. And then our next question is, what doors has law school opened for you that weren't available before?
Um, that's an interesting question. I mean, in the sense of like I'm now working like I've been working for a law firm because of doing my degree. Um, yeah, I mean, I think also going to law school, it kind of gives you a bit of like clout in a way of people kind of respect that degree more than they would like at least in my experience, that sometimes how they treat like a graduate degree or something, even though this is technically an undergraduate degree, people kind of have a sort of idea about, having a law degree and what it means. I think also that you don't have to be a lawyer. Like I'm working for a firm and like planning on working in private practice, which is like as like a litigator in a traditional sense. But there's so many other things that you can do with your degree, as was mentioned earlier. And I think that gives me a lot of like peace of mind also where you're kind of committing to this path, it feels like. But I know that, if I decide I don't want to do private practice, there's other things I can do with this degree in a lot of different areas, whether it's government work, whether it's in-house counsel, whether it's, a solicitor, if I don't want to do anything in the courtroom, or not even anything to do with the law, but you just kind of have that background and you can do something else. So it definitely opens a lot of doors in that sense for future career opportunities.
Yeah, I guess to add to that, there are so many different types of jobs that having a JD will help you with that aren't being a traditional lawyer. For example, one of my like the career path I'm planning to pursue is with the Competition Bureau. And so they take on uh, econ master students, they take on law students, and I think also like some stats students. But in that position, you don't necessarily need to be a lawyer. Like the type of work I'd be doing isn't what you'd imagine. It's not standing in a courtroom shouting at a judge. It's a bit more like policy work or a bit more, it's difficult to describe, right? But there are a lot of different opportunities that aren't necessarily what you'd imagine and might not even include being a lawyer in the traditional sense at all. That having a JD really helps you to achieve.
I can't speak that much to the opportunities outside of law school just yet. But I know that there's a couple doors that have opened kind of within the law school experience. I know that right now, I'm considering whether to apply for the JD MBA program that UBC offers, and that's something that you can apply for once you start your JD. And then I also know that at the end of this year, I UBC has a experiential component that's a mandatory part of a degree. It includes things like clinics and moots, but I'm really interested in doing the corporate externship, which allows you to go work with the in-house counsel team of one of Vancouver's bigger companies, whether it's Lululemon. I know some people worked at Arc'teryx, Best Buy. So there's a lot of opportunities. And one thing that's really true is you arrive at law school in your first week, you'll find out how many opportunities there is. The first week is all about all the doors that are open for you. So really absorb that first week of law school and find out what you might be interested in.
Just to add on to what you folks were saying, like one of the clinics that I'm involved in with Pro Bono Students Canada, which you should definitely join. I think there's like a chapter in every law school. I'm part of the Trans ID clinic, so helping trans folks change and update their driver's license, passports, like all their IDs. And you just get a lot more confidence just as a person to do advocacy work. I'm also a doula, like a birth worker, helping people have their babies. And so like being able to like there's so many translatable skills that happen across like any type of work that you're going to want to do. And even like being a part of a moot as someone, I told myself I would never do a moot, which is just like fake trial essentially, but it's worth course units. Um, I but then I ended up doing it because I dared myself to because I was like, this doesn't suit me, but it's gonna be fun and I get to go to Toronto for it. So there's lots of like travel opportunities, co-op opportunities within the JID program. You get to work with the nation as well, and so there's so many like travel changes your life in so many ways, and so getting to do that at school is like so good because you have the rest of your life to do law work, like do all the other things that you can. Like you don't have to work every summer either. Once you're in law school at a law job, you can do whatever you want and have fun, and then you'll have law for the rest of your life.
Awesome. Thank you guys. I think we're gonna have one more question and then move on to the Q&A portion. So our last question is just what's life at your specific law school like in terms of extracurriculars, clubs, and support and unique opportunities from the university?
At UVic, there's lots of clubs and things. I'm not the best person for that because I didn't join a lot of the clubs, but I would say you should join clubs. Like they have stuff, they have like a clubs day at the beginning, and there'll be like a business law club or there's like a movie law club where you like watch movies to do with the law and uh environmental law club. And I was kind of put off because I was like, well, I don't know anything about environmental law, but it's really more of just if you're interested in the environment, you can join that and then you get to do all these cool things and you could do like a research-a-thon as part of that, or like they go to a conference, I think, at some point in the year. So there's lots of clubs. Something that I am a part of that's sort of an extracurricular is we have a law review. I think most law schools have a law review, but I'm on the editorial board for that and I get credits for it, which is really great. but you can kind of be a part of that where we're like taking student scholarships of papers from law students and kind of putting them together into a law journal. Um, and then in terms of other supports as well, UVic has a lot of really good supports, especially for 1Ls. In terms of academic supports, they have this program called Amicus where they have tutors. So upper year students will tutor. They get paid to tutor 1Ls, which is really great because like having someone who's just taken the courses that you're in when you're in 1L is like the best type of tutor to have. Um, and just other academic supports and academic concessions, and there's tons of supports, and they will tell you all about all the supports because they want you to make it through. So they're there to support you, and yeah, they'll make that known, which is really at UVic for sure. I'm sure at other law schools as well.
Yeah, so we have infinite numbers of clubs here, which are super cool and so much fun. We have a space law club that organized an event at an observatory so we could like look at the stars. So much fun. Clubs are definitely a great experience, and I really recommend all of you to join them. They're really useful as well for interviews to explain why you're interested in a certain area of law. Like, for example, when I was discussing my interest in competition law, I could point to the fact that, like, hey, I'm the co-president of the competition law club. I've actually engaged with this area of law. I know I find it very interesting. It's something I want to continue to pursue. It's also a great way to find community. I met so many upper years in 1L who really helped me so much. They gave me their outlines. They helped me manage the law recruits. And it's such a great way to meet people and to find friends. At Queens, we also have so many other different types of extracurriculars. We have a huge moot program, which, as we kind of mentioned, is they're like mock trials essentially. Some of them are just volunteers, others are for credits. We have law review, similar to what Hannah's doing. We have clinics, which you have the opportunity to actually work with real people and real files. We have Pro Bono Students Canada, and in terms of the support network, we also have a tutoring program here where 1Ls who finish 1L in the top 25% are invited to tutor the incoming class. And it's such a valuable tool to have this upper year who had just recently taken these courses. They can give you tips on how to approach exams, how to approach readings, what these big scary words mean, and then also just adapt to a new city. If you are moving there, it's a friendly face, somebody you know around campus, somebody who can give you recommendations for places to check out. And it really helps to make the process a bit less lonely, especially at first when you're still making your friends. So I'd say Queens is so great in terms of the opportunities and the support that we receive.
Um, yeah, clubs are really fun, and it's a lot different than undergrad where I don't know, because it's such a tight-knit community, the clubs feel very personal, and it's a great way to meet people. Meeting upper years through clubs has been helpful. I have an upper year tutor that I met through the tutoring program, but I also through playing on the UBC Law hockey team, I've met, several other upper years that have been so helpful. Um, I've joined a lot of the sports clubs, which, the fun thing about clubs like that is that they're kind of low commitment. You don't have to show up all the time. I'm also part of the law students legal advice program that is run out of UBC, which is a really cool opportunity. You actually get to take on cases under the supervision of a lawyer, and within a month and a half of being at law school, I was interfacing with a client and talking with the supervising lawyer, helping me guiding through the process, which can be really daunting, but the hands-on experience is it's really helpful for school, and yeah, I've really enjoyed that. And lastly, the coolest club that I'm a part of is I'm part of the law games team, and law games is something that happens every year at one of the law schools, and it's essentially I don't know, the best way to explain it is maybe it's kind of like the Olympics for law schools. All the law schools send a team and you do like gym class sports like dodgeball and everybody there's a lot of social events and moods and this year it's in Quebec City after Christmas. So I'm excited about that.
I am also like Zach, I'm like a hardcore joiner of clubs. I'm like an exec on the Racialized Law Students Collective, and there's lots of identity-based ones that you can just join casually, like Indigenous law students, Black law students, Latino law students. Um, there's also a hard law, which is really cool at UBC as well. UBC and UVic are really good for hard law, and it's decriminalizing drugs. And they do a lot of like constitutional law stuff. They've been like witnesses and legal observers at the recent Drug Users Liberation Front trial that's happening right now, currently. Outlaws is like a queer law group that happens at they have chapters all across um, universities in North America. I'm a tutor with Amicus as well. And yeah, we get paid to just like hang out and like not only tutor students, but also like be emotional like soundboards for students that are like going through the grind of 1L. You can join the Law Student Society as well, which I am part of as VP external. And so it's like just like funding and stuff for clubs. Intramurals are the best. I'm part of the flag football and the softball team, and that is the way that you can balance working out and get your like social battery like check marked, but like not feel like you're not getting any social time in law school because it's so easy to isolate yourself during exams, and so don't do that. We also have at UVic is the only school that does a class called Law, Legislation, and Policy, and law firms eat that up. They love it when you do that because you learn how to do like statutory interpretation and other boring things. But then it's like actually very, very applicable. And I think every law student has to do administrative law and it sets you up for admin law like so well. So shout out UVic for LLP. And our social activity calendar, I'm sure every law school is, but like ours is like, it's in fact maybe too much. Like the first 2 months of law school is just nonsensical fun. And like, unfortunately, like, or fortunately, how you view it, like drinking activities. And so, and a lot of them are networking as well. So I'm sure every law school does this, but there's so many like sponsored law firm social activities and you get to network at the same time. So it's quite fun and unserious in the first month or two.
Okay, thank you all so much. We'll now open the floor for questions from attendees. So, if anyone has a question, please feel free to unmute yourself and jump in, raise your hand, or drop a question in the chat. We just got one in the chat that says, "What is considered a good LSAT score and undergrad average for UVic Law and other law schools, if you know?" So I think that's directed towards Lori, if you want to jump in.
Great question. And one that the other law schools can definitely answer specifically for you. I actually, we don't publish this information, and the reason being is because most law schools publish it only for the JD General admission stream or category. So it's only a piece of the pie. And what I was finding is that people would look at it and self-select out. I mean, we're getting lots. I got a 180 LSAT the other day. We're getting really, really high LSAT scores. So, if I publish that and then, really high GPAs, people are going to look at that and self-select out. And I don't want that. So what I say to people is aim for a 160 LSAT for UVic. And I'm only speaking for UVic. Go to the other law schools and check their websites because most of them do publish their medians. But I would say 160 minimum. And if you get higher, fantastic. If you get less, do not self-select out. There may be reasons. Take a look at the admission streams. Maybe there's one that you want to try and explain why, you're not getting as high an LSAT. Yeah, 160 would be the goal. And then anything higher than that, fantastic.
Perfect. We also got a question earlier in the chat that was, I guess, directed towards all the law students about if they have any recommended resources or techniques for studying for the LSAT. If any of you want to jump in regarding that.
One thing that I started doing later on was more regular. Once you've kind of got a good grasp of it, is just more almost exam like scenario practice tests where you're not taking like you're actually following the break timer and everything. Like going through that process can be helpful.
Yeah, definitely. I'd say do a lot of practice tests and if possible, do them in the same environment where you plan to write the actual exam. Just so you know you're kind of used to everything being the way it is, you're comfortable, you know what to expect. And it really helps you get a bit out of your head when it actually comes down to its testing.
On that, always recommend to my friends that they write them in person because there's so many technical difficulties that happen like every time. I you don't know any Everyone has gone through technical difficulty when they write it online because like the proctor like logs off and then you have to read like it's so distracting and it messes with your focus. So just writing it in person, then like if anything goes wrong, like they're witnessing it happening and you're not, yeah, write in person if you can.
Yeah, I don't know if I have anything else to add. It's been a long time since I've taken the LSAT. It's probably changed a lot. But I would say my biggest struggle was the time, and I could do all the questions if I just took all the time in the world to do them. But the point is the time. So timing yourself and sticking to it and making yourself, even though you're not going to finish your first practice test, and just practice that way, instead of just trying to like slowly work through the questions.
Perfect.
Also, if
Thank
you
you.
have sorry, if you have like any learning disability or anything, I have ADHD, so I got my time extended. So you do have to have a doctor's note for it, but it's totally possible and it's so worth it. So worth it.
Thank you. We just got a question in the chat, I think also directed towards Lori, that asks, can a strong personal statement, good LSAT score, and extracurriculars make up for a lower undergrad GPA, like 80% or so?
Absolutely. Yes. Your personal statement's your powerhouse.
Awesome. Thank you. And then we had a question on our Instagram that was asking, I guess directed towards everyone, what would you say the emergence of AI in academics has affected your law school journey in any way? And would using AI in undergrad affect your ability to do well in law school? If any of you have any comments on
Oh,
that?
I have lots of comments on this. I am anti-AI, but I understand that some people need it for learning, and if you have a disability, it can be really supportive for you with doing readings and everything like that. So there's room for it, but like, oh, it made everything worse for everyone else because of people's incessant use of AI. And so now we are not allowed to write our exams with the notes on our computer. We have to print out everything. It's so costly to print out all of our outlines now because outlines can be like upwards of like 50 pages, depending on the class. Um, and so just try your best to not use AI because you need to know how to have critical thinking skills while at the same time knowing when to use AI. Like to use it to write something for you is like a no-go. But if you're using it to like summarize something, like just know when is an appropriate time to use it and don't rely on it for your studies. Even though in the real world people use AI, like it's fine once you're there. But like school is about learning how to demonstrate your own understanding, and you're potentially like screwing with other people's experience of law school too, because like now we all have to do this on paper, like it's like the Stone Age. And then they fight you when you bring in papers for your exams sometimes because they're like, you're not allowed to outside sort like it truly messes with the flow of everything. So try not to, but also acknowledge when is the right time if you're going to do it.
Echoing that point for kind of the point that it changes the experience for other people. Like I have 6 exams this semester as opposed to 4, and that's because a lot of students used AI last year. So yeah, come prepared knowing that also like law schools are very ready for people like that are gonna try to use AI and they're really working on forcing it out. So learn learn how to learn without AI.
I'm going to echo everyone else's points about AI and how it affects our exams. It is not going to be fun to have to print out hundreds of pages. But I will also say at Queen's, it almost seems as though our law school is pushing us to use it. We've had a couple professors emphasize that it's a great tool. This is how we want you to use it. We have access to a special legal AI. We've had talks from various librarians in various classes about how to use it. And so I will say it does sound like this might be fairly law school dependent, but Queens has been pushing us towards it more and more. For example, I'm writing a memo right now for one of my classes, and in the instructions, the professor explicitly told us, hey, you can use AI however you want for this assignment. Just make sure you use a disclosure statement at the end. Tell me how you used the AI. What prompts did you give? What AI did you use? And so it's definitely an interesting time to navigate it because it definitely does have its advantages, but also its drawbacks. I have some friends who, for a lot of 1L, basically just relied on AI summaries of the cases, and you really don't digest the material in the same way. It becomes a lot harder to understand a lot of the reasoning behind some of these decisions. And so it can be a tool for sure. And it does sound like it changes a lot based on the law school, but definitely do not rely on it and don't use it during undergrad as a bit of a crutch. It's very important at this point in your careers to learn how to write clearly, learn how to present arguments, learn how to think critically. And so I would say it's not the best habit if you're using it habitually right now for your assignments and to summarize all of your readings.
Yeah, all I would add is that is true. Like even in the firm that I'm working at, they're integrating AI and those specific legal research AI tools into practice. So it will come into practice, I think, in the coming years as it gets better. But the advice that I've always like heard from profs or even practitioners about using AI is when you're a student, especially when you're starting off, is you don't know enough yet to be able to make like discernments about what the AI is outputting to you. So it'll probably do you more harm than good. So it can be a tool later on, but you're going to have to learn how to work without it before you can learn how to work with it.
Awesome. Thank you guys. That's super interesting. We just had another question in the chat that says, is it worth mentioning any and all kinds of extracurriculars in the personal statement, or do certain ones have more value? And any other information around that kind of thing. I think that's directed towards Lori.
Yeah, include all of your extracurriculars. Again, that one doesn't outweigh another. What we want to know is what did you learn from those experiences and what did you take away and what are you bringing forward?
Awesome. Thank you. And then another one is, are there any benefits of applying early, and when are the earliest offers typically given?
Yes, there's a huge benefit to applying early. Uh, we are making the first offers actually tomorrow. I have a batch of offers that will be going out. That's our first group, and then we will start rolling probably weekly after that point. The advantage is like right now we're staying on top of the application. So I'm evaluating as they come in. We are staying on top of them. We're getting them to committee for review. We're moving them where they need to go. Once we're already at close to 550 applications. We've got 2 weeks to go here. Last year, we received close to 1,400 applications and 700 arrived on December 1st. Your applications don't arrive to us in a pretty package. We actually have to pull your application and then start adding your personal statement and all of your documents. We have to rebuild it. Right now, we've got thousands of references. We have thousands of personal statements. We've got a gazillion documents. So it's much easier. So long story short, last year what happened is people who applied on December 1st, I had presumptive offers. So people who had really high LSATs and really high GPAs, I didn't see their application until April. The class is already full. So they went on the wait list. They missed the opportunity to get a presumptive offer. So yes, get it in early, even if, and you don't have to wait until you get your LSAT score, get your application in and we will pull your LSAT score. It's much easier if we have your application built and it's ready to go and all we're waiting for is your LSAT score. When we pull those scores, it'll get automatically added to it and come into me for review. We can get it moving. And if your LSAT score is not high enough the first time around, we will hold it to see if we get another LSAT score for you. So you're not going to be refused until we receive the January LSAT scores. And then if your application is non-competitive at that point in time, we will start sending out the refusals in March. But we are going to give you every opportunity to give us a higher LSAT or your fall grades, for example, so I can recalculate your GPA. We're going to give you every opportunity to be reviewed by the committee or by myself and get an offer.
Okay, thank you so much. We're reaching the end of our time today, and I want to thank everyone who showed up, especially our amazing panelists who have given up time in their busy schedules to guide us through everything law school. All of your advice has been completely invaluable. So thank you and have a great evening, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.